Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 7, which is entitled Further Inquiries by Vidura. And we're reading text 14.
If I can chime in for just a second. Vidura and Uddhava are brothers?
No, this conversation is between Vidura and Maitreya.
Okay, but what is the relation of Vidura to Uddhava?
Vidura was his relationship to Uddhava.
Yeah.
Well, he had just previously spoke to him. He was traveling on pilgrimage, and he met Uddhava at the bank of the Jamuna, and they just started questions and answers. I don't know if there's an actual family relation.
Okay. All right. So I was just trying to tie it together. Mary is familiar with the Uddhava Gita.
Oh, okay.
Yes. I think this is her first introduction to it.
Uddhava is just a very dear friend of Krishna's. Krishna gives instructions to Uddhava. Uddhava Gita, that's what that is. But here Vidura is just traveling and he's speaking to different persons. He spoke to Uddhava, and then Uddhava directed him actually to Maitreya, because Maitreya was a little more senior. And so Uddhava, out of humility, even though he's very advanced, out of humility, he said, you should speak to Maitreya. Mm-hmm. And so now Vidura walks and speaks to Maitreya.
So when Krishna spoke the Uddhava Gita, Maitreya was there.
He was there.
Not Maitreya is there, and Vidura is asking questions of Maitreya, and Maitreya is speaking here.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Hare Krishna.
Yeah. So we'll read this verse together. Ashesha Sanklesha Shaman Vidate.
Ashesha Sanklesha Samam Vidate.
Gunanuvada Shravanam Murare.
Gunanuvada Shravanam Murare.
Kimva Punastas Charanaravinda.
Kimva Punastat Charanaravinda.
Paraga Seva Rati Atma Labda.
Paraga Seva Rati Atma Labda.
Ashesha Sanklesha Shaman Vidate.
Ashesha Sanklesha Samam Vidate.
Gunanuvada Shravanam Murare.
Gunanuvada Shravanam Murare.
Kimva Punastas Charanaravinda.
Kimba Punastat Charanaravinda.
Paraga Seva Rati Atma Labda.
Paraga Seva Rati Atma Labda.
Ashesha Sanklesha Shaman Vidate.
Ashesha Sanklesha Samam Vidate.
Gunanuvada Shravanam Murare.
Gunanuvada Shravanam Murare.
Kimva Punastas Charanaravinda.
Kimba Punastat Charanaravinda.
Paraga Seva Rati Atma Labda.
Paraga Seva Rati Atma Labda. Ashesha Sanklesha Shamam Vidate.
Sanklesha Shaman Vidate.
Gunanuvada Shravanam Murare. Kimba Punastat Charanaravinda. Paraga Seva Rati Atma Labda.
Ashesha Sanklesha Shamam Vidate.
Ashesha Sanklesha Shamam Vidate.
Gunanuvada Shravanam Murare.
Gunanuvada Shravanam Murare.
Kimba Punastat Charanaravinda.
Kimba Punastat Charanaravinda.
Paraga Sevarati Atma Labda.
Paraga Seva Rati Atma Labda.
Ashesha Sanklesha Samam Vidate.
Ashesha Sanklesha Shamam Vidate.
Gunanuvada Shravanam Murare.
Gunanuvada Shravanam Murare.
Vapunastat Charanaravinda
Kimba punastat charanaravinda.
Raga Seva Ratir Atma Labda
Raga seva ratir atma labdha.
Ashesha,
Ashesha.
unlimited.
Unlimited.
Sanklesha,
Sanklesha.
miserable conditions.
Miserable conditions.
Shamam,
Shamam.
cessation.
Cessation.
Vidate,
Vidhate.
can perform.
Can perform.
Guna anuvada,
Gunu anuvada.
of the transcendental name,
Of the transcendental
Transcendental
name.
name.
form, qualities, pastimes,
Form, qualities, pastimes.
entourage, and paraphernalia.
Entourage and paraphernalia.
Shravanam,
Shravanam.
hearing and chanting.
Hearing and chanting.
Murare,
Murare.
of Murari Sri Krishna,
Of Murari Sri Krishna.
the personality of Godhead.
The personality of Godhead.
Kimva,
Kimba.
what to speak of.
What to speak of.
Punaha,
Puna.
again.
Again.
Tat,
Tat.
his.
His.
Charana Aravinda,
Charana Aradinda.
lotus feet.
Lotus feet.
Paraga Seva,
Paraga Seva.
to the service of the flavorful dust.
To the service of the flavorful dust.
Rati,
Rati.
attraction.
Attraction.
Atmalabda,
Atma Labda.
those who have gained such self-achievement.
Those who have gained such self-achievement.
Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Simply by chanting and hearing of the transcendental name, form, etc., of the personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, one can achieve the cessation of unlimited miserable conditions. Therefore, what to speak of those who have attained attraction for serving the flavor of the dust of the Lord's lotus feet? Report. Two different methods for controlling the material senses are recommended in the Vedic scriptural wisdom. One of them is the process of jnana, or the path of philosophical understanding of the Supreme, Brahma, Paramatma, and Bhagavan. The other is that of direct engagement in the transcendental loving devotional service of the Lord. Of these two most popular methods, the path of devotional service is recommended here as the best, because one on the path of devotional service does not have to wait for the attainment of the fruitive results of pious activities or for the results of knowledge. The two stages of executing devotional service are, first, the stage of practicing devotional service with our present senses under the regulations of the recognized scriptures, and second, attaining sincere attachment for serving the particles of the dust of the lotus feet of the Lord. The first stage is called sadhana bhakti, or devotional service for the neophyte, which is rendered under the direction of a pure devotee. And the second stage is called raga bhakti, in which the mature devotee automatically takes to the various services of the Lord out of sincere attachment. The great sage Maitreya now gives the final answer to all the questions of Vidura. Devotional service to the Lord is the ultimate means to mitigate all the miserable conditions of material existence. The path of knowledge, or that of mystic gymnastics, may be adopted as a means for the purpose, but unless mixed with bhakti or devotional service, they are unable to award the desired result. By practicing sadhana bhakti, one may gradually rise to the point of rag bhakti, and by performing rag bhakti in loving, transcendental service, one can even control the supreme powerful Lord. Umutyantimarandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamaya Tisvapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raganatan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakamitam He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinobandhu Jagatpate Govesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Rishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Panchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Bevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadada Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Pray for the blessings of the assembled devotees. May our words be aligned with Srila Prabhupada Guru Parampara. May all the devotees be benefited by hearing Srimad Bhagavatam together. May Shishi Radhasham Sundar be pleased with this gathering and hearing of the Srimad Bhagavatam. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Grateful to be here. Thank you. So this is, again, Canto 3, Chapter 7, entitled Further Inquiries by Vidura, Text 14. I'll again just read the translation. Simply by chanting and hearing of the transcendental name, form, etc. of the personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, one can achieve the cessation of unlimited miserable conditions. Therefore, what to speak of those who have attained attraction for serving the flavor of the dust of the Lord's lotus feet? So, as we were mentioning that Vidura is going on pilgrimage, and he's going to different places. He's going to different holy rivers, and he's speaking to different personalities. So this is nice if you ever have the opportunity to go on pilgrimage, but this also shows us what is the essence of going on pilgrimage. You go to try to find saintly people. You try to find saintly Vaishnavas, and you hear from them, and you ask questions, and there's an exchange. And so this is really the essence of pilgrimage. You know, this is so traditional in all different religion, all different parts of the world. There'd be seekers who would go look for some master, some teacher, someone who really knows truth. And there's an environment that's created. You know, there's a Priyanam. This is mentioned that Vidura, he asks questions in a very pleasing way, very respectful, very pleasing, and through this exchange, you know, questions are asked, answers come. And when both the questioner and also the one giving answers, I was reading recently, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, Prabhupada's spiritual master, says that for both of them, it's required that they don't have what he calls kartritva abhiman. They don't have the conception or the feeling that I'm giving the answer, or I'm also receiving the answer. That I am doing it is absent. If it's not absent, then it can be ego, an increase of the ego for both the person speaking and the person receiving too. Because even receiving, sometimes we think, let me get this information. Let me put it into my mind, and then I have it. But when the mind is just open and is realizing that only by God's grace, if God's grace flows through me, I'll be able to speak something. And if God's grace flows through me, I'll be able to receive something. And so the ego is left out of it. It's difficult, right? The ego wants to grab and take control. And he says, if you cultivate knowledge, spiritual knowledge even, but you haven't removed kartritva abhiman, the sense that I am the doer of it. If you haven't removed that, then the spiritual knowledge becomes material knowledge. If the ego just grabbed it just because this is all we know. We have these egos, and we get trained in school, we get trained in education, and okay, I got it now, and then we start to feel proud of having it. If there's that kind of that level of pride. But for all of us, it's the because the basis is the false ego. Then even spiritual things and spiritual knowledge can be stolen by the false ego and can just build up your ego. So, but if we hear in this open spirit, just independence and speaking in that way also, then something can flow through us and we can feel that we're being cleansed. Like this verse says, if you hear and chant, by hearing and chanting, um, in the right spirit, hearing and chanting, then all the miserable conditions of life can be washed away. Shows you the power of this. Simply by chanting and hearing of the transcendental name, form, etc., of the personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, one can achieve the cessation of unlimited miserable conditions. So this is the tradition, is the questions and answers and the sangha, just like we're doing now. We're hearing, and there can be some there can be some discussion and conversation. And in this way, it's this simple process that can cleanse the heart and also give us attraction. You see, there's two fruits from hearing and chanting that are mentioned in this verse. Two results. One is the miserable conditions can start to be removed from your own heart. Because the miserable conditions we experience in life are coming from our own hearts. It's not that something just happened outside of me and it's arbitrary and but the way it works, it's described that there are seeds in the subtle body. There are like seeds. You perform certain actions and it brings a reaction as a seed in your heart. And that seed gradually begins to develop. And then the final stage is a reaction that comes from the outside. It comes to you, maybe through a person or through an event, because it's karma. That's how karma works. It's actually, there are different stages. Like say you do something, some reaction comes into you. The first stage is called aparabdha karma. It means that it's not even manifest at all, but it's in your subtle body. It's invisible. You can't detect it. It's non-active. The next stage is called kutta. Kutta means it's a stage right before it becomes a seed. So somehow it's given these stages. And then there's bija. There's a form where it's now in a stage. Now it's a seed in your heart. It's actually there, and a seed we know grows with time. Right? So through the passage of time, that seed becomes prarabdha karma, which means now it manifests in your life as your destiny. As your destiny. So the destiny is coming from subtle, and then gross. There's something that happens to you. So when you hear and chant, like as we're doing now, and we're hearing about Krishna, the pure message of Krishna, if we can hear in that spirit of being free without the false ego, but really just letting it go, letting the grace enter in, it starts to burn away at those seeds in the heart so that they can actually vanish. And therefore you don't now need to receive some heavy reaction coming into your life. So, of course, this is a high quality of hearing, chanting. It's a high quality, but we can just put ourselves and absorb ourselves in the vibration of Srimad Bhagavatam. So I also wanted to mention this verse is an answer to a question that was just asked previously, a few verses back. Vidura is asking questions. Maitreya is responding. So the question, just for everyone here, to get the context a little bit, the question that was asked by Vidura, he says, if the living entity is pure, if we're originally pure, And we're always in relationship with the Paramatma. God is also in our hearts. So the Atma, the true self, is actually in the heart. And God is also there as Paramatma, as the Supreme Soul. So if I'm pure, and if I'm always in relationship with Paramatma, how and why are the living entities subjected to misfortune and miseries? You know, if God is always with you and you're a pure being, why are we in a situation where suffering comes to us, miseries come to us? That was the question. And he gives an answer, which is not this verse, but in his answer, he says, the Atma, the pure self, because the Atma is misidentified with the body and the mind complex. Because of that identification, it's so strong. It's like we're just, the pure self is fully identified with the mind and with the body. Because of that, the power of that identification, we suffer. And also these like we were mentioning, these we do certain reactions and they come into the subtle body. We identify with them. The whole strength of keeping it all together is that identification. You know, it's like an example that you can give is if you go to a movie theater. You know, you go to see a movie, you sit down in the movie theater. It has to be dark for this to work. So for the identification with the movie to be very strong, it should be dark. And you should be in a comfortable seat, comfort, dark room, and then you have this screen. And now, by the power of identification, you can experience all the emotions that are taking place in the actors. You can be laughing, and then you're crying, and then you're joyful, then you're excited. Just think about it. It's not you. You're just sitting there in a chair, but you're so identified that everything is coming, all the feelings, and you suffer. You can suffer in a movie, right? You're crying, then you're happy, then there's romance, and there's excitement, there's adventure. This is why we go to the movies, you know? It's it's giving us all those different flavors and tastes. But the sad thing is, we're just sitting there. You know, it's not in our life, right? It's not really happening in my life, and then I go and take shelter of this movie because I'm getting some rasa, some experience. Uh, so, in the same way, the Atma, the true self, which is said to be floating in the heart, it's floating on the pran, in the area of the heart. It's a part of God. It's a part of God. It's an individual. It's also a part of God. It's pure. It's eternal. But there's a verse in the Bhagavad Gita. It says, Mamaivam so jiva loke jiva bhuta sanatana. Manasastani indriyani prakriti stani karshati. Karshati means to draw. It's saying that this pure Atma, which is part of God and it's eternal, Karshati, it draws to itself mana shastani indriyani, the mind and the five, actually the six senses, including the mind. So this Atma is drawing to itself, this pure spark in the heart draws the mind and the senses to itself and identifies with it. And therefore, we're struggling, we're suffering. So that was the question, why the pure soul is going through misery. And that's the answer, because the Atma is identified with the mind body. And then here, this verse is the cure. How does this identification break? This verse that we're discussing today is the cure. And Prabhupada says, actually, in the purport, he says this is the essence to all of Vidura's questions, pure devotional service. Simply by chanting and hearing about the Lord, his name, his form, his qualities, his associates, his pastimes, when we absorb our minds in that, without the false ego, one can achieve the cessation of unlimited, miserable conditions. Therefore, what to speak of those who have attained attraction for serving the flavor of the dust of the Lord's lotus feet? So there's a power in this hearing process that starts to break the misidentification. Why? Because if we're actually in touch with God, like we were saying, if we're open and the ego is, we can let the ego go and just hear nicely, chant nicely. That's actually an energy that we're opening ourselves up to. when we talk about bhakti, sometimes we talk about doing bhakti, do bhakti and chant. Now sit down and chant. But bhakti is an energy of the Lord. It's a shakti, the bhakti shakti. So we're here in this material world with different material energies are flowing through us, the modes of nature, goodness, passion, and ignorance. I think that these are my thoughts, but in one sense, it's the modes of nature are thinking through me. It's like something came from the outside, got in there, and now I speak it, and I think it, and I feel it. It's energies, material energies that enter in, and they come back out of me, and I'm owning it all, but it's not really me. But what we can do is start to realize that that's happening, and then open ourselves to God, open ourselves through the process of hearing, chanting, remembering, worship, prayer. All these are all ways of opening your consciousness to receive a higher energy, a spiritual energy. And when that comes into us, that will start to, again, now it almost transmutes everything internally. It removes all these samskars, these impressions that are inside that eventually come out as desires and inclinations. So all the samskars are just sitting there, locked in our subtle body. All your lives, think about that. Every life you've ever experienced, all the experiences, everything is recorded and is inside of you as a samskar, as an impression. And some of them come to the surface with each life, a certain amount of them, not all of them, right? We don't remember I don't remember when I was, who knows what, some kind of animal or anything. I don't have those experiences right now, but they're still there inside of me. I only have a few that are now manifesting. I think I'm Italian. I'm from this state. These are my parents. These are my likes and these are my dislikes. Those are only a few of the samskars, and there's like a pool of unlimited samskars. So we can't remove that on our own. It's like an iceberg, It's like the iceberg we have a little access to just the tip, but underneath there's this gigantic solid ice. So our consciousness is like that. Only a little bit is present. I have to work on that too. I have to be aware of my tendencies, and I have to be aware of what I do, what I say. So there's a lot of self-work that's important. But underneath what's happening right here and now is a gigantic block of ice full of these kind of samskaras. What's going to melt that? What's going to melt that is when you open yourself to the spiritual energy, which is unlimitedly more powerful than anything material. If it gets into us, the bhakti shakti, then it actually starts to clear away and melt all those samskaras and all your miseries are gone. And even more wonderful than that, as this verse points out, our goal is not just to remove all the miseries from our life, but the goal is to awaken the attraction for God. That therefore this verse ends with, therefore what to speak, it removes all the miseries, but what to speak of those who have attained attraction for serving Sri Krishna. This desire to serve is love. So it means being absorbed and receiving love of God and love coming from his devotees, but also reciprocating and serving. This becomes the exchange. And it's our true nature. It's completely joyful. It's what we're all longing for. This is what your mind can't think of a higher goal than unlimited love for God and for all living beings, right? The exchange, that when we hear about Krishna in the spiritual world, sometimes it seems kind of fantastic, or it seems like we're projecting something because, it just seems really God is there and he's a boy and he's playing with his friends and he has it seems like we're just creating some. But if you really ask yourself, if you go very deep into your own heart, what is the most beautiful thing I can imagine? What is the deepest goal in my heart? It'd be very hard to come up with something other than unlimited, eternal, loving exchanges. Right? What are we doing? What are we doing? This is what everybody's after. This is what every song is about. Either the pain of not getting it, right? All love songs, either the pain you don't get it, or the joy and the love of getting it. So it's one or the other. Sometimes people make songs on a couple other subjects, but basically that's the heart of it. All the movies, all the thing, it's like this because it's who we are and it's what we're made for. But again, it's the Atma, it's the pure self that is meant to be relating with the pure Lord. And there's this interference called Maya. Maya is an energy of God's. It's a covering power. Maya is made up of the three modes of nature, as I just mentioned: goodness, passion, ignorance. And we're identified, it's flowing through us, we're thinking that way, feeling that way. But now there's a process called bhakti, which through loving acts and service and through hearing and chanting, and it's really just opening ourselves up to a higher energy. That's how you have to see it. Like when we do our sadhana, when we do our practice, if we think now I'm going to sit down and chant, pick up my beads, I will chant Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, I'm going to chant the name of God. It's actually, it may interfere, that mood interferes with the energy to flow into you. But if you think that this somehow I've been connected to this process by the grace of Prabhupada, something's been given to me, I have no access, all I can do is beg. So as I chant, it's like begging to the Lord for his, the name. I'm going to say the name. I can't produce the name of God, but I can just open my hands like this. This is the posture when you chant, it's just, please descend into my heart. Please, may your mercy just enter the darkness of my heart and purify me, and then utilize me in your service. That's the prayer. Prabhupada says when you chant Hare Krishna, Krishna, please engage me in your service. So a nice example that's given for an image for when you do any kind of spiritual practice. You can have the image of the Chataka bird. You ever heard of this bird, the Chataka bird? Some people say it's like a mythological bird. But there's said to be a bird that has made a decision. This bird decided, I'm only going to take the water that comes from a cloud. When a dark cloud forms in the sky, then the Chataka bird goes onto a tree, onto a branch, and it opens its mouth like this. And it's taken a vow that I will only drink water. All the other birds are drinking water from the earth. There's lakes and there's beautiful crystal clear lakes and there's rivers, and the birds are getting all the water they need. But this bird is saying, no, only from above. I only take a drop from above, not from down here. So this Chataka bird, it sees a dark cloud forming. It gets excited. Oh, it comes and it goes on top of the tree and it opens its mouth, just waiting. And then no rain may come. It's okay. It goes away back to its life, and then another cloud forms. Maybe this is going to be the drop. Back onto the branch, waiting, still nothing. Sometimes life is like that, right? We're begging God for a drop of mercy, but the heart is getting dry, nothing's happening. But he's very persistent. He's taken the vow, only from above I'll drink. And all the other birds think this bird is so foolish. There's water everywhere. Just enjoy. So much nice water. You can fill yourself. So look at us. You look skinny and you look like you're about to die. Drink water. Nourish yourself. But he has this deep commitment. Only I'll take it from the cloud. And so again and again. So when we chant, when we hear, when we pray, it's this mood. First of all, we have to give up certain things. We have to see in our own life, what are those things that will kind of keep me, because you see all those other birds, they're satisfied with the water of the earth, but you see they have no longing for God because they keep filling themselves up with other things, just a little bit. How do you get the longing for God? You actually have to let go of certain things to get it, because if we keep filling ourselves up with a little enjoyment, just enough enjoyment, then God, he's not so connected to that, not feeling the need. But if you let go of a few things, then you start, there's a need in the heart. And then that's the dangerous point, because the temptation is, let me fill it again with this person or this drug or this situation that I'm attached to. These are all, God is the Ashraya Tattva. He's the ultimate shelter. But our mistake is we keep getting a little shelter from other things, just enough to kind of feel okay, to take away that longing, that need, because it feels empty. But if we can feel that emptiness and go to God completely, then it's like you're fully receptive to that energy of God coming into your heart. This is like this can be explained even energetically. Like when you have a magnet. If you have, a magnet is like a positive charge, right? If you have two magnets, two positive charges, then they don't touch. But if you have a positive and a negative, then they touch. So God is the positive. He's Purusha. He's the supreme person. He's Purusha. Now, for us to connect, we have to be in the negative position, which means receptive. He's the doer. He's created everything. He's the controller, the doer. He has that active power, that active energy. Some people connect this also to male, female. It's also, you see, like, the masculine and feminine principles. When they actually connect, then something new can be produced, a child. But, so you see it operating in different ways in the world. This law of different energies, a positive, a negative, and then something. So what that means for us, the soul, the Atma, for all living beings is considered to be feminine. Only God is the supreme masculine. But the soul is feminine, so we have to return to that open, receptive. It's not just, receptive like you're doing nothing, you're lazy or something like that, or you're just passive. We have to engage in service. We have to do all these things. We have to chant. We have to hear. These are all actions. But in the mood of receiving this higher energy of bhakti coming into our heart. So God is that supreme being, and we have a relationship with him. And we understand this is, we can understand some of these details, and it can help us understand how to practice. What should be the mood? What should be the spirit? I also wanted to just mention, and then maybe we can have some discussion or some questions or anything like that. Another nice point that comes up here in the purport is Prabhupada explaining there's two kinds of bhakti. Bhakti means devotional service, love for God, and there's a process. There are 9 items of bhakti. Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu, Smaranam, Padasevanam, Archanam, Vandanam, Dasyam, Sakyam, Atma Nivedanam. These are 9 ways of turning your consciousness back to God. 9 ways of doing that. Prayer can do that. Hearing as we're doing can do that. Chanting can do that. Acting as a servant, acting as a friend of God's. These are 9 ways of turning your consciousness back to God, open to receive His grace. So there are 2 ways of practicing bhakti. One is called Vaidhi Bhakti. Prabhupada speaking about this Vaidhi Bhakti in the purport, which means you can say there's Vaidhi Bhakti, which is the impetus to do it is coming from scripture and authority. Like we were told, you should get up early in the morning. It's not like my favorite thing to do. You should come to the class, you should hear, you should chant a fixed number of rounds every day. It's not exactly my favorite. It's not like I have a love to do it. But I know it's good for me, and I know if I don't do it, that won't be good for me. So when you practice in that way, it's called Vaidhi. You're practicing because the impetus to practice is actually coming from the scriptures and from the different methods that are given. But it's nice to also know there's another kind of bhakti, another kind of practice. It's also practice. But it is that by association, by the right kind of association, a attraction awakens within your heart. And then you don't need to be told anymore to do these things. You want to do them. You like to do them. A taste. I can't wait to get up in the morning and see Krishna. First thing, let me take a nice shower and be nice and clean so I can present myself when I stand before Krishna, he's pleased to see me. Imagine getting up in the morning like that. Eagerness, your heart is overflowing. You're eager. Even if other things around me fall apart, I love Krishna. I can't wait to continue with the activities. It's not dependent on anything else because you've awakened your own love for God. And that's there in our hearts as well. So Prabhupada, therefore, this you see if you look closely at this verse, it's talking about these two things because it's saying one should. It says viddate, that one has to practice hearing and chanting and so forth. But then at the end of the verse, you see the word rati. Rati means attraction. But there's what to speak of those who have attraction. They will hear and chant spontaneously. So the difference between do this, it's good for you. Okay, let me do it. And that's what we have to be. That's where we have to be. Um, if the attraction hasn't naturally awakened, then we should take deep shelter of this process of Vaidhi Bhakti. And even when your attraction awakens, you still do all the practices of Vaidhi Bhakti. It's not that you give that all up and you stop. You just become totally like eccentric and just on your own with loving God. You still, Rupa Goswami said, you should still do all the items very nicely and you continue. But in your heart, the impetus to do it is different. The impetus is from within yourself, within your own love, rather than coming from the outside. But even when it comes from the outside, as it may for some of us, as it does for me, but there's still faith. There's still something activated inside of you that's connecting you to the Lord. And if one follows this process, continues to follow, interestingly, it's not that Vaidhi has to become Rag. You can actually just do Vaidhi your whole life and perfect Vaidhi, which means the rules, doing everything according to rules and regulations, and achieve the spiritual world. You can go. But it turns out that in this tradition, this Gaudiya Vaishnava tradition, all of our acharyas and all of the authorities and all the different, they all have this rag, this love, this attachment. So we're kind of on the path of rag, even though we're following Vaidhi because our goal is rag. Our goal is to have spontaneous. Otherwise, Krishna, look at Krishna. He's got no shirt on. This is very sweet, very intimate. This is like a level of the spiritual world which is very sweet. There's no, it's like he just simple and Radharani and they're dancing and he just has this beautiful form. In Vrindavan where Krishna is, we say God has 6 opulences. The opulences, the 2 opulences that are said to be supreme in Vrindavan where Krishna is his beauty. He's just so beautiful that when you see something beautiful, your eyes automatically go spontaneously, right? That's when the person doesn't have to tell you, oh, this is a beautiful thing, look at it. When something beautiful comes, you look because it's just spontaneous. So his beauty in Vrindavan is one of his supreme opulences. Also his renunciation. What does that mean? It's explained nicely that he renounces. What does Krishna renounce? What does he give up? He gives up his godhood. He gives up that he's even God. He gives up that he's God. He doesn't want to know that. Nobody else wants to know that because it interferes with the intimacy of the love. It's a very amazing thing to have this knowledge that God has many, many different aspects. But this idea of worshiping Krishna is the godhood that I am God is taken away, and he wants it taken away. Because if you're trying to love him very sweetly as a friend, but really in the back of your mind, well, this is God, so how can I really be sweet? There's always a part of me that's a little reserved or a little bit not able to fully experience friendship. So Krishna and Vrindavan, those things are taken, he renounces all that. And he's just a friend. He's just a lover. He's just like he could be like your child, If Mother Yashoda knows that Krishna is God, it takes away all her parental love because they're the essence of the love. I have to take care of him. I have to make sure he stays safe, and I have to make sure he learns things properly. I have to discipline him sometimes, otherwise he'll grow up to be a bad person. She thinks like that. So it's like it's entering into this world of complete sweetness and love. Now, all of our acharyas, all the teachers of the Gaudiya Vaishnava tradition, this is their goal. This is their heart. This is who they are. So us being connected and hearing these things, we're kind of on that path by some inconceivable mercy. And it's really, really amazing and beautiful. So if you just perfect Vaidhi Bhakti, you can't go to Vrindavan with Krishna. You can go to Vaikuntha, the spiritual world, and Krishna as God. he's God, and you know he's God, and maybe that's your spirit and mood, and that's fine too. That's also beautiful and perfect. But it happens to be this line that we're connected to, the Gaudiya Vaishnavas. They they all love Krishna. We're worshiping Krishna. We're thinking of Krishna. We're hearing Krishna's pastime. So whether we know it or not, this is the direction. So in a sense, you can say we're all on the path of rag, of spontaneous attachment, but our path is through all the practices of Vaidhi and being very careful. We honor that. We put that on our heads and just, we know it's beyond where we are now. At the same time, that's the goal of my heart. And I continue to follow the process as given by the devotees of Krishna, which is all according to the rules and regulations. And so this is a little bit about this purport, beautiful purport and verse, and you see how much is actually there. Just looking at this yesterday, and it's like all these things were coming, so many beautiful points, and so there's so much in Prabhupada's purport if you take it really one line at a time, and if you look at the verse carefully, you see things just there's unlimited knowledge in each verse. So I'll stop here and see if there are any comments or reflections or questions. Anything.
Open the comment. During the last class, and stuff like nice verse, and like maybe there was potency to the process. As I was thinking about things that almost simultaneously you would be speaking about them. I think I'm understanding for once in the chat. So I'm sort of seeing two parts to this, and as you mentioned, there's sort of that first part that's about here's the sort of the issue of the material world and all this stuff, these karmic seeds that can be around for who knows how many lifetimes. It's time immemorial. It can seem like overwhelming. Gee, if I had millions of therapists and millions of lives to try to untangle all that, it would seem like a big task.
Yeah.
So yeah, this very first part, and it's like, wow, Prabhupada opens it with the word simply, like all this stuff, but simply by hearing and chanting. And then there's the second part, though, what to speak of those who have this, what you talk so nicely about, this attraction, this actual taste, this spontaneity. So it's a really interesting kind of 1, 2, these part A, part B, or these two. Like, so no matter where you're at, the process of the hearing and chanting. And so I am wondering, as far as I don't know that I myself, I mean, I can kind of relate to both aspects. And so there is a part of me that maybe wants to have a life coach or get some therapy or study attachment theory and look at the particulars of this human life, and then again that would there'll be no end to that. And then there's the other part where it's like, you sit there sometimes and it's just like just having this experience that we attribute just to grace, always this mercy, this moment of none of that stuff even seems to exist. Like you really are pure spirit, and all that stuff you just cease to identify with it in that moment. You just feel present with Krishna, seeing Krishna's beauty. But it seems that, like, I don't know how to ignore that first part completely. I wish I could just so I don't know if you have thoughts about
Yeah.
The process of actually, being here and getting, I don't know if it's about extricating yourself. Sometimes it could seem like you're in the material ocean and I'm going to get myself free. So I'm going to start like get this little bucket and start throwing water on the beach. Or is it more that like, the Lord reaching down and just pulling you out, or you looking up and just simplifying the process?
Yeah, no,
I don't know.
yeah, no, you shared very nicely. I think it's something a lot of us can relate to. You know, like that definitely. It's like we have to kind of get into what's going on down here and in my own heart. And I want to bring my awareness to all that, and I have to work on certain things. And then there's this other side, which is just, hearing, chanting. Remember this direct process, the direct process. So if we look closely at the Bhagavad Gita, it really gives these two messages again and again throughout the Gita, which is one thing is about first becoming whole. And the language it uses to explain about becoming whole in life is understanding the modes of nature and coming to the mode of goodness. So this is first part. It's again and again, Arjuna, you're a Kshatriya. He has to be a Kshatriya, which means following all the real virtues of a Kshatriya, which are sattvic, actually, in the sense of like, detached action. It's duty. Put duty before what you like and what you dislike. Really enter into that. Your service and courage and, all of these things as a Kshatriya, but they're different natures, of course. But for every nature, the idea is see the modes, what modes are operating within you, see what's flowing through you, and then start to make choices towards goodness. This is a preparation. It's like getting into a real prepared space so that one can deeply receive. Now, even in passion or ignorance, you can sometimes receive grace, right? So there are moments of it. But then the problem is we're still kind of a little bit in the mud there, and we're just, oh, that was wonderful, but then I got this going on. And so we have to struggle a little bit to find with awareness and seeing what's in our heart. So the two messages of the Gita, if you look through all the chapters, again and again, it's emphasized even late in the Gita, back to the three modes. Here we are again. Okay, this is charity. This is what charity is in ignorance. And it keeps giving us this hint because, and there's a verse in the 11th canto Bhagavatam that says that one has to defeat the mode of ignorance with the next mode up, the mode of passion, defeat the mode of passion with the mode of goodness, and then from the mode of goodness, one has to surrender to God. From the platform of the mode of goodness also has to be overcome. So all this work is necessary for a lot of us, and we have to know our own minds. There has to be self-knowledge of now what is my conditioning, because it's different for others. And so certain things may help to relieve you and free you up a little bit. But like I was saying with the iceberg, right? It's like we have, say, in your heart, there are so many knots from the conditioning. So by removing some of the knots, you can get to this big knot that's there. There's one big knot. And if that is just opened up, then you're open to God. That's one big knot. But there's like millions of little knots all around it. I don't know, this is maybe a little weird analogy. But you don't have to undo every one of those million knots to get to the big knot. You got to do just enough. I don't know what that is for you. I don't know what it is for me, even sometimes, I don't know. But I'm learning, if you're starting to getting realizations that, oh, I don't need this anymore. I used to need this. Maybe now I don't need this. My 15th therapist said just something that you mentioned. Maybe I've done enough and I kind of got the fruit of all that understanding that I need to just surrender to God. And I can, and there's something in me that can start to feel like I can do it. And I'm starting to get what that means, and I'm starting to get a little taste. Or there are moments where I feel that grace coming into my heart and something's happening. So, we're working our way through all of this, but we need to do just enough to get realizations that Krishna is everything. And I need to go nowhere else. But we need to get enough to get that realization. If I don't have it, I have to be honest and admit I don't have it, and I need other things, and that's okay. We find people, we find devotees, hopefully, who also have gone through these other ways. Actually, there's terms for this too. This is called Sangha Siddha Bhakti. It's also called Bhakti, generously, I think. But it means those things that assist my Bhakti is also a kind of Bhakti. So if your goal is Bhakti, and your goal is Krishna, and your goal is love of Krishna, um, but there are certain things that will kind of assist me getting there. And that's also, you can put into a category of Bhakti. This is given by Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. So this Svarup Siddha Bhakti, which is just this direct, pure Bhakti. It is just your nature, your eternal nature in connection with God through hearing, chanting, spontaneously. So that is that pure Bhakti. But there are certain things that are going to assist me. And we all have to search our own hearts for that too, to understand what that is and what's necessary. We get guidance from others, but also there's a great power in self-knowledge, observing yourself. So the language of the Gita for that is mode of goodness, moving in that direction, and yeah, it's a crazy time we're in, all the acharyas in one sense, I sometimes feel like when I was you read some books of the Goswamis and things like that, I wonder if they ever knew those books would be read by, somebody, in New York, in the year, who's had such a heavy conditioning and so much maybe trauma. And because if you see when they write, if you notice the Goswamis, when they write who the book is for, it's like for each other. They do it for each other. Like this is not for Sanatan Goswami. This is for Rupa. It's like they're doing it for friends, this very deep association. At the same time, we know, and Prabhupada, emphasized this so much, that the power of these books and the information and the knowledge and the connection to God, it should be given to everyone, everywhere, at all times, and that is bhakti. Bhakti can be done like that. But it's interesting to see that their little dedications are like just for each other. It's like, this book's for you. You just enjoy it, And then here we are with this heavy conditioning and all this stuff, and we have to also be very much self-aware, which is a part of the process. I know I shared a lot. I'm sorry, but dear Govinda, please, do you have any thoughts or?
Appreciating the thing and appreciating yes, all parts of your class, Ghanashyam Prabhu, and thank you, Gajendra Prabhu, for these questions, fully in the spirit of Vidura and Maitreya. Yeah. So, well, one thing, since you referenced the Goswamis, there's a lecture, I think it's one of those 1966 lectures. Prabhupada's talking about the Goswamis, Sanatan and Rupa Goswami. And these are great saintly persons, brilliant philosophers from about 500 years ago, the Goswamis. And they lived in North India, a place called Vrindavan. And Prabhupada would talk about their activities, and he essentially said, I'm paraphrasing a bit, but he would say, the Goswamis, they did hearing and chanting and writing, and they did marriage counseling. Yeah. So I think it's relevant to the conversation. They conducted marriage counseling. Yeah, and Srila Prabhupada said that kind of knowing that the audience might be surprised, but hearing, chanting, and they built temples and this and that, and go and also Prabhupada, even apparently ordinary things. The townsfolk would come to them. So it's not just about the time of death and remembering God, but about their financial troubles. And Prabhupada specifically said their marital conflicts. Okay, so I think it's relevant to the conversation. I think it's relevant. So the Goswamis were above this. No, this was their service. So I'm just putting that out there. Interesting. Just yesterday, I got a letter. There's a young woman in her 20s. In recent years, she's participating in some of the Safato transformational seminars. She's in our coach training program. She's like really talented and natural like that. And she's also in recent years coming to Bhakti. She's also coming to Bhakti. And She's not based in North Florida, I would say. So I wonder who it is. She's not based in North Florida. And anyhow, she said, yeah, so because she's hearing different things from different people, she said, like, well, if we're hearing from those who aren't practicing devotional service and coaching, is that prajalpa, which means just kind of like non-spiritual nonsense talk. And she's like, well, how is this coaching? How is it connected with bhakti? So I'm looking forward to respond to her today. So I'm kind of practicing my response now. So there's this verse that Prabhupada often quotes, spoken by Narada Muni. And so Narada Muni speaking to Vyasadeva, and then Prabhupada and his purport, they talk about psychology, they talk about psychotherapy, they talk about economics, they talk about politics. They talk about social work and science and chemistry and physics, all the respectable human occupations. It's like, yeah, well, they're material. No, so there's no doubt that Srila Prabhupada and all our acharyas, great realized spiritual teachers, they want their followers to be leaders in all of those fields. They want their followers to be not like this bhakti. It's relentlessly world embracing. It's not world rejecting. It's world embracing. The Goswamis were conducting marriage counseling, and to be leaders in all those fields. Now, whether the person I'm going to be writing to, whether she decides that that's her role in life, I mean, that's between her and Krishna and Prabhupada. But it's so as far as like, and then okay, so Rupa Goswami talks about two tracks. So there's the analogy of like the garden of the heart. So just like a garden, there's watering, and I'll present it this way, because then the other track is pulling the weeds, because we don't pull the weeds in the garden, even the water, and the water can be the chanting and the spiritual study, and then even the water, it will water the weeds, and the weeds can be things like greed, lust, envy, self-deception, laziness, etc. So I'll present it that the weeding, it's not really complementary. It's an intrinsic part. It's an intrinsic part of the process. We can also think of it as complementary, and that's what Prabhupada and Rupa Goswami present. I think they're both essential. And so whether it's through the 15 psychotherapists, or whether it's through reading Prabhupada's books or chanting japa, but somehow or other, it's vital that we do our reading. And how whatever we do it, if it's actually in a spirit of bhakti, I'm going to pull these weeds to enhance my capacity to serve. Then, however we do it, it's not material. Then we're spiritualizing that process. That's some thing like I was personally moved by all facets of the class. Kind of like the first thing I really appreciated where you went was about us endeavoring to realize ourselves as an instrument. So I can think about like let's say if I'm giving class, well, right now I'm speaking. I think I'm speaking. I hope I make really good points, and people. So like it's about me and my ego. Like okay, so like the invocation prayers on again. Let me be an instrument that my words are aligned with the substance and content of Srila Prabhupada and Srimati Radharani. So but then you focused, you focused on the receiving part. I'd never, oh no, I'm receiving. So, but then it's like I'm receiving the kartaham iti manyate. I'm the doer. And for me, that relates to, there's a text from the Goswamis, Anya Bilashitasu and Gana Karma Dinabhitam, Puyana Krishna Chilanam Bhakti Uttama. That, so then like there's the pure bhakti, which is our path, to whatever extent we're sincere. And then it can be mixed with like, okay, karma, be like, okay, that typical karma, maybe like collecting, I collect cars, I collect money in the bank account, I I I collect adoration or distinction. Right? You know, then it gets a little more subtle, the jnana. I collect knowledge. Even I collect spiritual knowledge. Even if it's bhakti knowledge, it's like I collect it, and that's impressive. So I appreciated you invoked Srila Bhakti Siddhanta from him, like that's a subtle weed. That's a subtle weed, and the subtle weeds can be more dangerous than the gross weeds, because the subtle weeds, they're actually pretty flowers. I can easily deceive myself. Yeah, it's yeah. So it's like it's our responsibility to find a way to pull the weeds from the garden of the heart, and it's not really, it's not an optional part of the process, and that way could be simply chanting and reading Bhagavatam and like that. At the same time, then there could watch out for the proverbial spiritual bypass. So where I'm not noticing my self-deception, and then each round, each verse I memorize waters the weed of arrogance and superiority, and that's where sangha or good psychotherapy, whatever, a seminar could be really helpful. People care enough about us to give honest feedback. Also, I just did so much of your classroom. The whole story of the Bhagavatam. The Bhagavatam is revealed by Srila Vyasadeva. And before he revealed it, he was despondent. You could say it was spiritual depression. Kind of like in the first chapter of Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna has some spiritual depression, despondency. So, because and Vyasadeva, he'd already revealed all the Vedas, the Upanishads, but he was, because he felt such compassion, he really wanted us people in Florida and New York 5,000 years later to like really get this and transform our lives. And he knew that all those Vedas, they're not going to do it for us. So the spiritual master comes along, Narada Muni, and Narada Muni says, yeah, you're despondent, how come? Vyasadeva says, you don't need to ask. You're deeply empathic. You know what's in my heart. You don't need to ask. Narada Muni says, you're right. I see what's going on. Anyhow, we won't get into the whole dialogue, which is a wonderful dialogue. And but then after the association with Narada Muni, Vyasadeva goes into a trance of bhakti, bhakti yogina manasi samyak panite, trance of bhakti, and then he gets realization of Krishna as the supreme, as the substratum of all existence, transcendental personhood, Krishna. Now that again, then the impersonal white light and Maya's, they're energies. I really liked how you described that. Ultimately, this is an energy, and we get to experience that. Like after morning program, wow, I'm experiencing that energy of bhakti. It's an energy of Krishna. It's there all the time. That's why Prabhupada gives us like morning program and all. It's this, yeah, and Vyasadeva sees that everyone's suffering. Was here with the terrible sufferings. The analogies given before are like, if one is dreaming, I see my head cut off. It's gruesome. It's grotesque. But it must be a hallucination, because if I'm seeing it, then my head won't be cut off. And then the other one is like the ripples on the water with the moon. So everyone's suffering. Bayam dvitiya binivesha tasyat, the root cause of all suffering misidentification of the eternal blissful spirit soul with the temporary body. And then he sees, so that's the problem. And here's a solution, just like in this section. Anaku Pashamam Sakshat. The problem is all these unwanted things in the heart. Bhakti Yogamaya Hokshuja. And the solution is bhakti. And that moved him, Chakra Satyajasam, that moved him to reveal the Bhagavatam, which is relentlessly bhakti. Hare Krishna.
Right.
Damayanti online. That's a hand.
Right.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Ghanashyam Prabhu, for the class. It was very enlivening and refreshing. And I was touched by the bird who vowed to only take water from the clouds, from the rain from the clouds. And I don't know why, but it made me think of this thing that went around the internet, a translation of something that Saint Teresa of Avila wrote. She had a vision. She had a vision of Krishna. Her description. I don't know, have you heard of this before?
Yeah, it's pretty amazing, huh?
Yes, yeah, and I found the quote. I don't know if I want to read it all, but like basically she saw a blackish youth of strange beauty, and he had a garland, and I'm not reading it. I'm just sharing that they were in a forest, and it was just this beautiful like orchard forest scene, and he also had maidens walking with him. And I just think she really, I mean, the thing is, Christian, there's no one, like, I looked all over the internet for this quote. I found the original text, which I know a little bit of Spanish, and I saw at least some words like the word black. And, I was like, okay, I would love for a devotee who can speak Spanish or whatever. I mean, pretty sure she spoke Spanish, just to retranslate it again. So I know it really was pretty much what this English says. I really wanted to like verify her whole quote that she saw, and she was just like absolutely captivated, couldn't take her eyes off it. She knew it was an imagination, and she knew it was a vision of where great souls go. Anyway, just everything about, like, there's several paragraphs about her vision. And I'm just thinking how she did that. Like, she vowed to only look up to God and see what he reveals. And he revealed a vision, that the devotees can decipher. The Vaishnav devotees can decipher what that vision was. There's nowhere on the internet where Christians are interested about Krishna. I don't see any. It's mostly like, no, it's not a vision of. I heard one statement. No, it wasn't a vision of Krishna. Like, we hear you about how Krishna looks, but that's just not how the translator sees it or something. But he doesn't have the eyes to see what she saw. Anyway, that just came to mind, like, just taking whatever God sends, and that's what God sent to Saint Teresa of Avila, who is Christian. She saw that vision of Krishna. Anyway, it just came to mind, and it's just amazing.
It's really amazing. I mean, when I came across that too, I was like, this is unbelievable, and like, I think she also says, like, I don't know, like, who that was, but all I can say is that I love God more after seeing.
Yes, that's part of it. I just read that this morning. Yeah.
It's just that was her conclusion, that I just have more love for God after seeing that person, and I don't know who that was, but anyway,
Uh,
it's unique. It's very unique. Usually, I mean, Krishna can do anything, right? So he can reveal himself to anyone he wants, but at the same time, I heard this nice analogy, like God is like a crystal. You know, a crystal has all these different facets and with different colors too. If you look at a diamond, right, it has all these facets, these flat surfaces, and they can be different colors. And so that crystal, it like emanates into this material world, and those different lights are like just different rays coming from that one crystal. So the different religions of the world are like these different rays, and they may have different colors. So then they fight. You know, we're the people of the green color, we're the people of the blue color, we're the people of the red color. And so all these different like aspects of God have come into this world through different lines, different like you know, groups and different teachers from those groups. You know, and so it's like this ray of Krishna Bhakti is just very, very special, very unique, because it's the intimate form of God where there's just spontaneous love, where he's a friend and he's a lover. And so another line may just be focusing on, you know, Allah. He's the all powerful. It's another aspect of God that's coming through, and it also has their teachers and their groups and their sanghas and their books, you know, the different books for. So God is revealing Himself in so many ways to people, and usually it comes through a particular line with a particular parampara, or you know, or different books and different systems and things like that. But Krishna can do anything, and so suddenly here's this woman, you know, who is very, very advanced spiritually, and in her prayer and her devotion, then Krishna just gives her a glimpse of Himself as Sri Krishna, and and you can see her reaction was just nothing but appreciation, and an increase of her love for God. So anyway, yeah, it's these are all different lines, and you know, this Krishna is giving us opportunities. That where does your heart call you? You know, there's different traditions, there's different groups, and there's different. They all have a system, and it's all like a ray leading back to the sun. And the sun has its many rays, and they say yogis can ride the rays of the sun into the sun. You know, like so these rays come in different religions, and by riding that wave, which means following that particular process, that particular color, those teachers, that group, it brings you back to the Supreme Lord. And then He has so many different aspects. And so anyway, it just helps me see, you know, understand all these different traditions and all the different possibilities, and also so much to value the Gaudiya Vaishnava tradition, the sweetness and the beauty of it. This particular ray has come uh, somehow into our lives, and we have an opportunity to ride that ray back up and return to Krishna.
I have a friend who's Catholic, and this is like a childhood friend since we were 10. We've stayed close all these years, and we both found God around the same time, but in different traditions. And we don't talk about, when we talk about God generally, but we don't get into philosophy a lot. We're just friends and, you know, supporting each other. I mean, I think it's a high quality friend. It's definitely a high quality friendship with really good listening and love. And there's also the spiritual aspect of our spiritual perspective brought in. So it's all good. But whenever we get into philosophy, like, oh, you know, what is your tradition? And ask questions. Whenever I describe more and more, she's like, wow, that actually is like really similar. And like, wow, I'm surprised. You know, just um really open-minded Christian, still on her path and has and is not any like super interested in what I'm doing, but at least curious and friendly. And anyway, that it's just it's so enlivening to make contact with people on different paths and to have those crossovers and like have those affirmations anytime it can happen. And, you know, I had a friend who is Christian, and she wanted to read the Bhagavad Gita, and she's like, wow, you're so lucky to have your spiritual master be present recently. And you know, she was just so open and just took it seriously. And I was like, wow, you're really an open-minded Christian. Anyway, thank you.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Thoughts or reflections or questions?
Yeah, I have to.
Sure.
something that you said that really stood out to me was that the modes of material nature are working through us, and that helped me to just get more distant from my thoughts and my behaviors, and like I so often identify with my thoughts and my behaviors, and so like, oh, these material modes are actually working through me. It's not that I am Tamas, or I am Rajas, but they're working through me. That was really helpful. And then with we were talking about chanting and like the mood of chanting being receptive and like begging and praying for that divine energy, Krishna's energy, to enter into us. And recently with chanting for me, I've just been like chanting fast and kind of like doing and working through it. This is me have to do instead of, you know, I'm working on like really listening, but I'm not very good at it. But that was really helpful for me too. I want to be in that mood when I'm chanting. I want to be praying for Krishna's divine energy to be entering into me.
It's great realizations. Yeah, it's like, you know, we have all the tamas inside of us, and the passion and things like that, and then there's part of the process where we kind of get upset that we're like that. You know, we kind of struggle with it, and we feel sometimes it just heavy depression or pain or whatever it is, and then there's another stage where then, but that's not me. You know, that's a big really. I mean, that gives a lot of relief if you really come to it through a kind of understand. Well, it's really not me. Like I've owned it, and that's the source of the pain, the commitment. But it's gradual, so there has to be sometimes feeling it for a long time, and then another stage of understanding is that, and it's not me. So there's a little now relief of it's not like who I really am. It's not destiny either, but it's just something that's come from the outside and has made a home in me. I've invited it, and it's there, and it's kind of locked in there, and I'm struggling, but it can also be let go of. And then there's that verse at the end of the second chapter of the Gita, where all the desires are rushing through and things like that, but a self-realized soul realizes that it doesn't act on them, and just like all the rivers are coming into the ocean stays just steady and unaffected. So there still may be like those voices or those things coming back up, but there could be a state which is put aside and go back. Awesome.
So that's the whole theme.
Yeah.
There's going to be disturbances, including and most primarily from our own mind.
Yeah.
And that doesn't mean we need to be disturbed. Comes to teach us about the self-realized soul is not disturbed. That's the whole theme. Second chapter especially. So again, there's going to be disturbances, and in a sense, the core of all this is my mind. It's not that person or the financial or the pandemic. Okay, and then as we progress on the path, okay, disturbances, they're not less. But I'm less disturbed because I'm less identified with them. So that's a vital part of the path, and very relieving to whatever drops of realization we end up there. Thank you for leading this in discussion.
Grateful to be with all of you and just share Bhagavatam together, and appreciate the invitation and the opportunity.
Thank you so
Srimad
much.
Bhagavatam ki jai.
Jai.
Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna.
Apologize for having to run out so fast too, but I gotta get